forgiveness. It's seen as a virtue, a sign of strength, of moral superiority. But what if everything you've been told about forgiveness is a lie? What if it's not about healing, not about letting go, but about something far more calculated? Today, Priyansh and I are going to break it down piece by piece. Let's see where this goes. Priyansh, what if I told you that forgiveness is a lie? That the very idea of letting go, of moving on, is just a tool to keep people weak, to stop them from acting on the very emotions that define them?
I mean, that's, I guess, one way of looking at it, but I think it's a evolutionary response. If you hold on to grudges, you can't work in social cohesions, and human beings, the way they are, we hunted in packs. The reason we are almost very close to those kinds of animals like ants and bees, which form together, combine together in order to achieve a task. Hell, most of our greatest achievements are when individual people put on effort into individual things. So the reason we are where we are even as a species is not because of our individual strengths like tigers, but rather due to our collective strengths like ants. And that is why I think it makes sense, evolutionarily speaking, that we do work together. I'm not sure how much of this is a conspiracy too, though.
That makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. But then why is forgiveness framed as something noble, something righteous, rather than just a practical tool? If it's just about social cohesion, why do we glorify it? Why do we see those who hold grudges as bitter, as lesser? Maybe it's not just about cooperation. Maybe it's about control.
Definitely, but the point is, human beings are more than often. All of our survival strategy is linked to our emotions, right? If you don't want to eat a unknown weird substance, it is linked to disgust. So an emotion arises, but the logic behind this is evolutionary survivor. Same goes with sugar cravings. It is so that we can have energy, that we can. Same goes with wanting high calorie food because we want to store fat in order to survive. So everything, every emotion that we face is linked to our survival, and that is why for holding on to grudges or holding on to bitterness is seen as the wrong thing to do or the lesser thing to do, because it disrupts overall social cohesion, which we've learned almost instinctively through our own evolution, that it leads to better survival, hence the emotional response.
That makes sense. But then that would imply forgiveness is just another biological trick, like hunger, like fear. It's not some moral high ground. It's just a way to keep the machine running. But that also means if we step outside of this instinct, we can see it for what it is. Maybe there are times when forgiveness isn't the right move, when holding on to anger, onto resentment, is actually the more rational choice. Maybe bitterness isn't always a flaw, it's just another tool, one we've been told not to use.
But I'll give you even better perspective. Perhaps that is true for sure, but I just came onto a better thought. So the reason forgiveness is glorified is the same reason other things like goodness, kindness, helpfulness, smiling, and all of these other things are glorified, and they're glorified to the point that they are the basis of our morality. And that is why religions almost quite literally force us traditionally to do all of these things at the right, as the right or the things to do. Why? Because they're also designed to keep social cohesion. They're also designed to make sure there is long term prosperity of society that happens. And that is why these emotions are, all of these different sorts of emotions are glorified, and forgiveness is one of them.
Exactly. So forgiveness isn't some divine virtue, it's just another rule in the grand design of keeping societies stable. The reason it's pushed so hard, the reason religions, governments, and cultures all reinforce it, is because if people never forgave, if they always held on to grudges, society would collapse into endless cycles of revenge and conflict. It's less about personal virtue and more about collective survival. So, maybe the real question isn't whether forgiveness is good or bad, it's whether it serves you in a given moment, whether playing along with the system benefits you, or whether breaking the rule and holding onto your grudge gives you more power.
See, at the end of the day, societally speaking, forgiveness is the right way to go about things because that will help humanity as a whole. Now, if we are going to talk about individuality, that's a completely separate matter. For example, kindness. Let's take kindness into consideration. Yeah, and let's say donations. So if let's say I'm kind to different sorts of people around me, let's say I'm kind to strangers, I give away to the homeless. What exactly is happening, on an individual scale? I am giving some of my resources, so I'm losing resources at the end of the day. Now, when I'm doing it in secret, in private, and when no one else is noticing, so I'm not getting anything in return. But let's say, for example, I'm on a date. Now I'm giving away the money to a homeless person, but that signals to the date that yes, he is someone who's nice, who's virtuous, who is invoking positive emotional feelings within her, and that is how I can get that date to make it. To a higher level, and ultimately we can form a relationship together, so I gained something. So if we're looking at it that way, then forgiveness itself, and any other emotions, hell, anger, revenge, whatever the hell, if you look at it from an individual basis and break it down to the logical assertions of how it will serve you, then that breaks down morality as a whole, because you're just because that will, I mean, from an individual basis, forgiveness is not always correct, but it is yet another tool in the arsenal that sometimes can lead you to a slight loss and sometimes can lead you to a slight gain. So use them strategically if you're talking about individuality.
Exactly. Morality at its core is a social construct meant to regulate groups, not individuals. For an individual, morality is just another system to navigate, another set of tools to use when it benefits you and discard when it doesn't. Forgiveness, kindness, generosity, these are all just strategic choices, not universal virtues. If forgiving someone gives you leverage, social points, or peace of mind, then it's useful. If holding a grudge keeps you sharp, gives you motivation, or maintains power over someone, then that's useful too. The real question isn't whether forgiveness is good or bad, it's when it's useful and whether you're the one in control of it or just blindly following the rules set by society.
Exactly. So, if your goal is individualistic, if you want the best life for yourself, then use morality itself strategically on how much it benefits you in what situations.
Exactly. Morality isn't a rigid system you have to follow. It's a game. If you want to win at life, you don't reject morality outright, you learn how to use it. Play the role of the kind, forgiving person when it benefits you. Play the role of the ruthless, vengeful one when that's the smarter move. The people who blindly follow morality are just pieces on the board. The people who understand how to wield it, they're the ones actually playing the game.
Exactly. So, use forgiveness, be forgiving, help other people, but do so consciously and for a strategic purpose.
Forgiveness. They tell you it makes you a better person, that it's the righteous path. But is it really? Or is it just another tool, one that's been weaponized to control you? Priyansh and I have broken it down, stripped away the illusions, and what we found is simple. Morality is a game. You either play it or you get played. Patterns are everywhere.